Go.
Let's pray as we begin. Father, we thank you for bringing us here yet again, where we're able to take a look together at this third part in the series. Father, we ask that as we take a look at the concept of following and how even more you continue to call us into this, may it not just be something that we hear and we talk about, but may it be that this is a total change in thought process and paradigm, and even more in lifestyle. Father, guide us as we look, guide us as we listen, and guide us as we journey with you, ultimately, to what you have for us at this moment in time, so that we're more fully and more apt to follow you no matter where you're taking us. This is our prayer. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. You know, the concept of following seems to be a very strange thing, where no matter where you go, it seems to be something that continually changes, where what it is for one person to follow, it's different for another. But time and time again, it seems that if we would stop and actually talk, that these concepts are probably the same. You know, as I was growing up and the topic of following came up, we often thought about different games that we played, and these might be some games that you played as well growing up. Like games like Follow the Leader, or even Hide and Go Seek. Though, got to a point where even playing Hide and Go Seek got really tiring. Having one person going out and trying to find everybody that was hiding, and depending on where you were, it could be that some of these people were so good hiding that you could never find them. But as time went on, I was introduced to a new game that I guess you could say that it was a different version of Hide and Go Seek. But the name of that game was called Sardines. And the whole concept of it was that one person went out and hid while the group went to find them. And the last person that found the group was the next person that went and hid. You know, as I was thinking about that this last week, it struck me. What if some of these ancient games that we played and following have a connection within the Christian life? I know some of you are probably going, well, you know, now that's a real far stretch. But when we stop and we look at it, all of them have a single thread element going through them, and that's working together for a common purpose. But even more than just that, especially in Christianity, as we're following Jesus, so often we think that we have to be walking in his footsteps or walking by his side, where 99.9% of the time, he's actually carrying us. And that's what following is about. Following is getting to the point where we trust Jesus so much that we're not looking to other things. Now today we're going to be taking a look at a story in Mark chapter 10 of a young man that was his problem, where he had so much of a focus on other things that he forgot who Jesus was. Now, if you have your Bibles, and I hope you do, if you don't, on your phone or other places, Mark chapter 10, we're actually going to be continuing on from a passage that we took a look at last time, where Jesus was trying to tell the people about childlike faith and how important it was. But here's something that we need to realize again, is that any time that Jesus makes a point, he continues to build upon the points that he has made to continue the paradigm of thought and process so that we're able to actually get to the ultimate conclusion that he's leading us to. So at the beginning we saw where he talks about divorce, from there going into a childlike faith, and then right now, very middle, the crux of the chapter, he goes into what true faith really actually is. Let's take a look at this together. Verse 17 says this. As he, talking about Jesus, was setting out on a journey, a man ran up to him and knelt before him and asked, "Good teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Right there, it seems that every time Jesus is trying to go on a journey, you got someone that's stopping him. Now, does that sound familiar? Seems like a lot of us have that problem too. So this is nothing new. Jesus was waiting for this. But here's what we see. We see a young man, probably early 20s, very well successful already in his job, well fit. And the way I'm seeing it, probably a little bit of out of breath, because he's trying to catch Jesus before he leaves. And so as he's asking this, Jesus is probably having to lean forward a little bit more to catch the words in between these heavy breathing, so he's able to understand fully what's going on. But the young man asks him the simple question, "What must I do?" Did you catch that? What must I do? Not what needs to be done. What must I do to inherit eternal life? Jesus is probably standing there going, okay, we've got a problem right there, but we'll make it simple. But here's what's interesting. Jesus, anytime that a question is thrown out, he does the same thing that he has always done. And even more, he does the same thing that the rabbis at that time did as well. He answers the question with a question. Verse 18, and Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." Right there, young man calls him good teacher. And Jesus goes, well, hold on just a second. Why do you say good? What makes you say that about me? Here's what you need to learn. There is only one that is good, and that is God. Now, how often do we use that and we forget about the very characteristic of who God is? Or even calling ourselves or someone else is good, but we're really not. You know, the whole concept of following comes down into it that we're not just keeping to keep things for keeping's sake, but we're following through because that's what God has called us to. But even more, not just because he's called us to, because the more that we spend time with him, the more that he carries us, the more we become like him. And that journey is a moment by moment, day by day process that he continues to have us go through, not just now, but to eternity. And we think that at the beginning of eternity it stops, but no, it doesn't. It continues through eternity and then beyond, because it's a continual learning and growing experience. But Jesus continues. He says, you know the commandments. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Do not defraud. Honor your father and mother. Now right there, what's interesting, probably some of you, as you're reading this, are going, whoa, hold on just a second. There's more to the 10 Commandments than just that. And you're right. Jesus, at that time, was touching on the major points that were problems. Yeah, there were still problems in the other areas as well, but they were not significant enough to point because they knew what the scroll said. So Jesus touches on these. And you probably can imagine that the young man is looking at Jesus kind of going, okay, where are you going with this? But then he answers, and here's what the problem is with his answer. We're going to look at the problem and then we're going to look at the answer. The problem is this. It was a rapid response to the question that Jesus gave. Which too often we say, oh, well, you know, we're not like that. We don't give rapid responses. Don't we? We're given questions, and to get people off of our backs, we'd rather fire from the hip than actually tell people the truth. Because we're too afraid that we might lose something that's close to us than to actually have the truth known. And Jesus continues to come back to us and says, in following, it means even when things seem the worst, truth always prevails. Isn't that important for us right now? Honestly, I think that is, because that's part of our change in character. But let's take a look at his response. Verse 20. And he said to him, Teacher, I have kept all these things from my youth up. Basically saying, hey, listen, I was raised this way. I've got no problems. Verse 21. Looking at him, Jesus felt love for him and said to him, let's stop there for a moment. Every time Jesus came into situations like this, or even other situations where he's dealing with people on a moment-by-moment connection basis, Jesus, what we have to understand, he had a heart for people. Not just he had a heart for people, Jesus has always had a heart for people because he's in the people business. But even in this situation, just like with the disciples, he saw potential. And Jesus sees beyond the curtain, sees the young boy's heart, and knows how he needs to respond. And so we see Jesus' response at the end of verse 21, where it says, one thing you lack. Now Jesus could have said, you lack many things, but he says, one thing you lack. Go and sell all you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me. Right there. Even as we take a look at the whole concept of the poor at that time, Jesus mentions to the disciples and others that the poor will always be. And even the Jewish system had different areas where the poor were actually taken care of. And that was going through this young man's mind. Where, okay, if I give everything, I'm going to all of a sudden become like them. But that's not what Jesus was saying. What Jesus was getting at the very center of the problem, or you could say the center of the solution, because in God's mind, a problem is just another solution. Jesus is telling him this. What you need is you need to take away the distractions. Take away the distractions, sell them away, take that money, give it to the people that are in need. And then what you need to do next is not go away all sad. Come and follow me, because I have an even bigger plan for your life than you can ever understand. Now, this side of eternity, you won't really understand, but understand this, that I'm the one in control. And I've already written the story. Not just I write the story, I have written the story. That's what I love about this. Our story is already written. Jesus is carrying us through it. But he says, come, follow me. It could have been a very different story if this young man said, oh yes, I'll do this. And he went and did that and then came and followed Jesus. We would have had a very different ending. But that's not how it ends. Verse 22 says this, but at these words he was saddened, and he went away grieving, for he was one who owned much property. Here's what's interesting with this. The whole concept that's given within the backtone of this verse was not just, we look at the word sad and we think of someone that, oh, I'm sad today. Almost thinking of like an Eeyore type of personality. No, that's not the type. He was given this information, and it was basically in his heart like a death sentence, where that was it. And his heart is torn apart, and he doesn't want to do what Jesus has to say. So he goes away, and basically he's pushing what Jesus said and Jesus to the side, saying that what I have is more important than what you want to give to me. That brings this thought into my mind right now. How often are we like that ourselves? Where Jesus says, hey, give back, pay it forward, follow me. But we would rather say, what I have is mine and mine alone, and I don't want to do that. You know, it's interesting how we have that concept in our minds from a very young age. And Jesus continues to come time and time and time again. He won't leave us. He will continue to throw this concept into our lives until the very end. All he's asking is follow me, because I've got a better life for you. But we see this man going away, downcast, destroyed within his spirit, because he has so much. Or he thinks he has much, but he really doesn't. But here's how it continues. And Jesus, looking around, there's probably tears in Jesus' eyes at this time, said to his disciples, how hard it is for those who are wealthy to enter the kingdom of God. Right there, Jesus is trying to remind them that it's not about the wealth itself, because there's a lot of wealthy people that we see in the Bible that end up helping other people. It's about putting something not just ahead of God, but putting it in the place of God. And that's what this young man was doing with his wealth, with his inheritance, with his land, whatever it was that made him into that status. The disciples were amazed at his words. You know, it always makes me laugh with that. The disciples spent so much time with Jesus, and yet every time Jesus said almost the same thing, they were continually amazed. How often is it that we do the same, that Jesus continues to tell this, not on a day-by-day basis, but a moment-by-moment basis, and we're still amazed that he continues to say the same words. But in this, I have to insert this fact. The reason why they were amazed and why we get amazed is that we are astounded that Jesus has the audacity to remind us that we're wrong. Now, we could just finish right there and just say, well, there we go. But that's not the end. We have to understand that we're wrong, because if we don't get the fact that we're wrong, we won't realize that we're not truly following Jesus. That's why the disciples are amazed right here. But Jesus continues on. But Jesus answered again and said to them, children, did you catch that? Children, trying to catch them at their essence. Sometimes you even have to call us adults kids to say, or even, hey, do you realize that you're acting like a little kid? Children, how hard it is to enter the kingdom of God. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. You know, I don't know about you, but in my younger days, when I heard that, all that I'm picturing is the days that I would see someone sewing something, and then they would get done, they would clip the threads, and they would get ready to put the needle back. Looking at that needle and picturing this ginormous of an animal trying to fit through the eye of that needle. And I'm like, I'm sorry, unless you shrink it down to size and try to put it through, or maybe put it in the blender. Even then, how do you put a camel in the blender? Still trying to figure that out. If you have an answer, please let me know. But then in my studies, I came across this, that what Jesus is actually talking about is that there was a gate called the eye of the needle, that in order for travelers to go through this gate, they had to get off their camels, and the camel actually had to get down on all fours and crawl through the gate. And a lot of times they had to take off the parcels and packages and other things that were on this camel so that the camel could get through without getting hurt. That's what Jesus is saying. It's easier for a camel to go through a gate that is so small than for someone that thinks that they have everything to be in heaven. Now, I don't know if you got that. The whole concept is this, is thinking. Too often we think too much and we think that we have everything when we really have nothing. We can gain the whole world and yet we have lost eternity. Personally, I'd rather have little and be with Jesus forever in heaven. But Jesus throws that out. The disciples, they're still not understanding. Verse 26, they were even more astonished and said to him, then who can be saved? Isn't that the question that we continue to ask? Continue to ask God? Okay, if this is not a possibility, then what's going to happen? Who can be saved? How can we do anything? Every time this question continues to come up, Jesus' answer is still the same. And this is what I love. Jesus comes back and says, salvation is not about you. Salvation is about me. I'm the one that saves. Let me take care of the process. And even more, follow me. Trust me. Trust that I have your best interest at heart. More that you get to know me, the more that you'll understand what I have to say and how I think. You may not understand it this side of eternity, but I do promise you that as we grow together, you will understand. Verse 27, looking at them, Jesus said, with people it is impossible, but not with God, for all things are possible with God. Did you catch that? I love how that verse puts it. And even more, how the original language puts it, how it could be translated like this. Could be translated like, let's put it into the modern English vernacular. When we look at people, things will always go bad. Get used to it. No, that's a hard one right there. But then that last part, when it comes to God, get used to this, that God lives in the possible. And that everything that God does for you not only is true, it is possible and then some. Because this is God. And that's how much He loves you. Now, don't you love that promise? And even more than that, God promises that with what He does, He continues to back it up, not just with His name, but with all eternity itself. Verse 28, Peter began to say to him, behold, we have left everything and followed you. Oh, there's times I wish we had a time machine or something with some of these stories to be able to go and sit in the background and hear this dialogue, hear how they were conversing. Because even more, Peter had the problem that we still have, is that he was focused on himself. Where Peter goes, oh, we've done all this. Focus on me, it's the me show. But Jesus is standing there going, you still don't get it. I understand that you've left it. But even more, Jesus knew that Peter had a family. Peter's still having to make sure that they're supported. But here's how Jesus comes back. Verse 29, Jesus said, truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brothers, or sisters, or mother, or father, or children, or farms, for my sake and the gospel's sake. You know, if we stopped there, that would be very disheartening. Because the very fact that the disciples are going, whoa, hold on, haven't we left for all of this? But too often, we'd rather jump to a conclusion than to hear Jesus out. And it's not just Jesus. Doesn't this happen to all of us when someone else is talking? Where all of a sudden, instead of listening, we've already jumped to a conclusion that we think that that's what they're talking about. And we've got it in their mind what they're going to say, and because they're talking here, all we're hearing is Charlie Brown's teacher, and we're coming up with our response to what they're saying now. Instead of stepping back with what this is what Jesus wants us to do, to step back, to truly listen, and don't respond until the person is done talking. But the disciples are ready to respond, but Jesus goes, hold on, right there. I know that you've left it all. Let me finish. This is how he finishes. But that he will receive 100 times as much now in the present age, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and farms, along with persecutions, and in the age to come eternal life. Did you catch that? Jesus goes, hey, you've left all this, but you'll be given this back again, and then some. And oh, by the way, you ready for this? You're going to be persecuted. Now, Jesus seems to have a sense of humor right here, doesn't he? Where he says, you're going to get your stuff, but it's also going to come with persecution. Now, right there, even talking about that, we forget the very fact that with being a follower of Jesus, there will naturally come persecution with that. Because we follow Jesus to the nth degree that we're willing to do anything that he tells us to do because that's how much we love him. But even more than just that, it's not just about the love, that's how much we've been changed by him to where his character has become ours. And he is still carrying us through all this moment by moment so that we're able to see more fully and more truly what he has for us to see. But that's not the end of the story. He ends with this in verse 31 where he says, but many who are first will be last, and the last first. Now, did you get that? Right there, Jesus is pointing at the disciples' problems yet again, saying, hey boys, you've got a me problem, you've got an I problem. You're trying to stick it to other people, but you need to remember, if you want to be first, you need to be last. Even more than just that, you need to serve. Because in serving others is a part of following me. And in following me, you're not just keeping what I've asked you to keep. You're following it because you love me, you have a relationship with me, and you want to continue to grow in what I've set before you. You know, as we continue on, I want to leave you with this final thought. That while following is not easy, God is good. And because he has promised, he will see us through both now and to the end of eternity. Let's pray. Father, how true that is. And we thank you and we praise you that you are a God that keeps his promise, even when we don't. And that you continue to call us to follow you, to grow with you, and even more, not just keeping what you have said, but making it a part of who we are. Father, we ask that in the very name of Jesus, that you continue to fill our spirits, continue to grow us, continue to carry us, so that we're able to go forward, not just in the name of a church, in the name of a locality, but in the very name of Jesus, who calls us to place everything aside, give it to others, and to focus solely on Him. We ask that you would continue to guide us and bless us as we go through this next week. We know that there's craziness that will continue to happen, but we know that you are in control. And we know that you continue to call us to follow you no matter what's happening. Guide us and bless us. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Next week we'll be coming back with the fourth part in our Principles series. The title of our sermon for next Sabbath will be entitled Having It All. The whole concept behind this seems to be a double standard, but really it's not. Concept is this, that you may think that you have it all, but if you're not using it how God has asked us to use it, it will lead to nothing, and ultimately lead to something into areas that you don't want to be in. May God continue to bless you and keep you as you continue through this next week, and look forward to being with you via YouTube and other areas as we continue to journey and study together. God bless.